Welcome back to the house at Long Meadow. It is a big organizing day here today. It is my annual day every year that we start garden planning. It's the day I go through seeds, discard old seeds, plan for what seeds we're going to grow next year in the garden, and get seeds ordered. Now, I know you may be thinking it's only December. We've barely made it past the Christmas holidays, and it's not even the new year yet. But nevertheless, it's time to start planning. Here in about a month, it will be time for us to start some seeds indoors for things that will need to go out into the garden after our last frost of the year. So I'm gonna grab a cup of coffee, come on over to the table with me, and let's chat. All right, let's go. Every year in early December, the seed magazines start pouring into my mailbox. Now, as a first-time gardener, this pile of magazines overwhelmed me. I would get so excited about all of the beautiful seeds, the photographs, the descriptions, everything in these magazines called to me. I was tabbing pages, highlighting, and placing seed orders that were far too much for what I actually needed or what I actually needed to grow. So, where do you start as a gardener when you're planning for the gardening season ahead? The first thing that you need to do is think about what you like to eat. What does your family like to eat? Are there certain vegetables that you love? Are there fermented foods that you love? Canned goods that you love? Things that you could grow to help replace things that you buy at the grocery store. That is the most important thing when it comes to gardening. It doesn't matter if the kohlrabi in the picture looks beautiful if you're not going to eat it. Then it's just wasted. It's wasted money and it's wasted time and effort. Now, when it comes to sourcing seeds, there are a few places that I always go to. One of those would be Baker Creek. This is strictly heirloom seeds. So an heirloom seed is going to be a seed that will grow true to the parent plant year after year. And most of these plants have been saved for generations and generations. This is a great way for me to be just a little bit sustainable in my garden and not have to buy seeds of that sort year after year. Now, another really great place that I love to buy seeds that I always have really, really good luck from is Johnny's Seeds. Johnny's catalog has so much information and detail on seeds, and most of what you find in the Johnny's Seed catalog is going to be a hybrid seed variety. Now, that means that the seeds that I'm buying were a cross between two parent plants, and those plants have been bred by gardeners to help resist pests, help resist disease. So this is where science and gardening cross paths and make it a lot easier for me as a gardener to have a successful garden season. Now, some other sources that I love to buy from are tomato growers, peppers and tomatoes. You cannot go wrong with. So this is a great source to go to. And Burpee. Let me be sure to tell you that one of the most important places that I buy seed is from my local feed store. Now, if your local feed store is anything like mine, then it has been around for generations. When you walk in the door, there's probably 2 or 3 generations of family members working that store at any given time. The nice thing about that is there is generations of knowledge for you to gain if you will just ask for a little help. The seed varieties that they have right there in your local farm store are going to be seed varieties that are suited for your growing zone. So the nice thing about walking into your local farm store is that you're going to be a little bit more tailored to the area that you're growing in. And that's really important when you're buying seeds. We want to buy seeds that are going to give us a successful growing season. Okay, so before we start planting, it's time for me to get organized. I have empty seed packets, expired seed packets that just did not make it back into my storage containers throughout the growing season. Sometimes gardening is a little bit frantic and a little bit messy for me with 3 kids running underfoot. So let me show you how I like to organize my seeds. Now, there's nothing special about this. In fact, a lot of gardeners that I know organize the same way. But this is a photo organizing container from my local craft store. Now, you can also find this on Amazon, and I'll post a link below for those of you that may want to find it. But these little containers, I just label with whatever seed variety is in there. This is tomatoes. And so in there, I will put all of the seed packets that I have of tomatoes. It's nice, it's waterproof, and I can just carry this straight out into the garden or the greenhouse if I'm starting seeds. The large container is nice as well. It has a handle. I can carry this right out with me and just makes it easy to tote the seeds around wherever I need to go. Also keep a plastic container of seeds as well for seeds that I'm buying from my local farm store. Typically, those seeds are going to come in a larger quantity than the seed packets that I would get from Johnny's or Baker Creek Seeds. And so those don't easily fit in that storage container. So things like a pinto bean that we grow, or corn that we grow each year, or even seeds that I've saved from years before, I just keep a plastic container that I can throw some of these bigger packets in. Nothing special, just a way for me to keep everything organized. So let's get to organizing. now that we're a little bit more organized, let me show you the next thing I do when I'm planning my spring garden. I will take just a simple wall calendar, and when I'm planning out my seeds, I will go in and make my notes straight into this wall calendar. Now, this year I'm doing things a little bit differently. This calendar has worked really, really well for me throughout the years, but this calendar is typically hanging in my mudroom, so I wanted something that I could carry with me along with my seed bin out to the garden. So I've started a little binder that will combine the calendar that I've been using and my field notes, so to speak, from out in the garden. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do in my garden calendar is I'm going to mark my last frost date of the winter and my first frost date in the fall. Now, if you don't know what your last frost date or your first frost date is, you can go online to the Farmer's Almanac website, type in your zip code, and it will give you your frost dates. Those are probably the most important dates you need to know when you're gardening. So for me here in Zone 8A, very last frost date is the first week in April. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark last frost date. And then all of my seed starting will play off of this date. Each seed packet is going to have a lot of information on the back, but it's also going to tell you when that seed needs to be starting in relation to your frost date. So for these Sun Gold cherry tomatoes, we're gonna need to start the seeds indoors 6 weeks before our last frost. So I'm gonna count back in my calendar 6 weeks. So that means in order to plant out these Sun Gold cherry tomatoes after my last frost date, I'm going to need to start those tomatoes indoors around the third week in February. So I'm gonna note that in my calendar that I'm going to start Sun Gold. Now I will do that for each seed variety that I'm growing. If I'm going to start seeds indoors, typically for each week, I make a list of just on one of the dates, I will write indoors and then note each seed variety that I need to start indoors. Now, when it comes to direct seeding, meaning I can just go straight out into the garden bed and sow those seeds, I will just write the seed name down and put a DS next to it, meaning I need to direct seed those straight into the garden, and there's no need for me to pot those up indoors in the greenhouse. Now, another thing I'm going to do when I'm planning out this coming season's garden is to go over my garden plan. Now, by trade, I worked in the construction industry, so I love having a nice big garden format laid out for me, but that's totally not necessary. You could also just take some graph paper and lay out your garden on that graph paper to help you get organized. So each year, I mark out what I'm growing in each garden bed. So these beds last year were onions for me. I had cabbages and broccoli growing in beds next to those onions. So what this means is this coming season, I don't need to plant onions in those beds. We want to rotate crops around. Typically, it will be 2 to 4 years before I would put onions back into this same location. So keeping a garden plan like this helps me stay on track. Each year I can look back at previous garden plans and know whether or not I can plant something in that specific bed or if I should rotate it to another area. Now, if you want more detailed information about how we plan out our garden each year at House at Long Meadow, what seed varieties we're growing here in Zone 8A, you can check out the link below to our blog post that details all of this out. There's also a link below to this free garden planner download. You can download that, print it off, stick it in a binder, and organize your garden just like we do here at House at Longmeadow. Lastly, I hope you have fun planning your garden. This is one of my favorite things to do each year when it comes to gardening, is sitting down, looking through all of the seed catalogs, planning out what we're going to grow. This brings me such excitement for the coming season, and I hope it does you too.